Book Club. It is Thursday, am I right? Is it Thursday evening? And I'm here with the absolutely lovely David Fennell to talk about A Violent Heart. So, do you want to tell us a little bit, introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about Grace 4?
Yeah, as you very correctly introduced, I am David Fennell, here to talk about A Violent Heart, the fourth Grace Archer and Harry Quinn book. It's a story of our two detectives going rogue effectively to track down the historical murders of women who live on the fringes of society. So essentially drug addicts or people in the sex trade, women in the sex trade, who over the past 30, 40 years have been ignored by the police and ignored by society. And, as Grace Archer delves deeper into this case, I mean, she's kind of just shocked by the amount of terrible policing over the years, and then she starts to find parallels today, and hence, and she has a new boss, and he's like an old school copper, and and not a very nice man, and he is very dead against her, pursuing a lot of these cases. So that's why she goes rogue, basically, and does her own thing. Add into that mix, we have the return of Mallory Jones, who from See No Evil. She was the true crime podcaster, who was the bane of Grace Archer. So she now plays a pretty important role in this book, as someone who helps, sometimes hinders, but mostly helps in the uncovering of these historical crimes.
Mallory's a really interesting character because obviously we've not seen anything of her since book one, and she was. Is it fair to say she was a thorn in Grace's side?
Yeah,
So
totally.
they've got a tricky history, but they do manage to kind of figure out a way of rubbing along better in this one, quite to Mallory and Grace's surprise.
That's absolutely right. Mallory has access to information that Grace doesn't. She has witness reports. So, like a lot of podcasters, they will go into true crime podcasters. They will dive into old cases and go investigating, and they will find out stuff that either the police have not even bothered looking at, or that they just don't know. And so Mallory will create a show out of the disappearance of a particular woman who was found with murdered in a certain way, and then she discovers that another woman was killed in a similar circumstances, and she has that information, and she finds out that someone today has been killed in that way, and so that's when she tries to hook up with Grace, who is who's leading the case in this one.
I mean, we won't go into what actually happens, but there is an element because of I love a book with a serial killer, a dual timeline, unusual murder weapon, cracking main characters. This is my thing. This is my favorite kind of book, and there's an element of, well, is this the same person, or is this a copycat? And obviously, we're not going to say what actually happens, but it's really interesting looking at, as you say, policing then and their attitude towards sex workers, and then policing today. And Grace and Quinn are having none of it. They're having none of the nonsense. A victim or a criminal are a victim and a criminal, no matter what the circumstances, no matter who they are. But she feels very strongly that because of these women's choice of work, that shouldn't mean that they don't get help. They should have all of the same support and resources available to them that everybody else has. And I really liked how you kind of leaned into a little bit the idea of what things were maybe like, and then the changes that have happened since, and Grace's adamance to really get ahead into this and not be put off by the people who don't want to help these women.
That's right. Yeah, I mean, it's as I've done with all my books. I want to give voice to the victims, and I, want to tell their story. So, you mentioned the dual timeline. So we go back each time Mallory or Grace discovers a name. The next chapter, we go back and we find out what happened to that person, and each of those chapters is from that victim's perspective. We learn who they are, we learn their hopes, their dreams, and so on, and how they ended up in that situation, and that's like a chapter of drama about them, and extremely likable, normal people who just found themselves in very difficult circumstances through no fault of their own. They were either, they come from broken homes, or they were abused by partners or by fathers, and kicked out onto the street at young ages. And they, at the time, we're going back, into the late 80s and in the 90s, and it wasn't that long ago that this kind of stuff happened. And of course, we've had numerous it's been not that much workaround for people, and I mean, it's difficult today, but back then, the only way that some women could earn money was to sell themselves. Also, it's not all about people in the sex trade, women in the sex trade. It's drug addicts and people like that, again, who were just dismissed by the police and considered not important, not worth the time to fill out a report and investigate.
I like the fact that, as you said, everyone's got a chapter. There is some relevance. It's not just read out through, okay, this is the murder board, this is what we've got. You really seeing the victims through their own eyes and breaking down the barriers with that. And is it Elena? Am I saying her name right? I wasn't sure if it's going to be Eleanor or Elena. Elena Zorich, and she's somebody who's changed her life to a degree. She's settled with a partner. There's still some drug issues, but she's her partner doesn't want her out being a sex worker, working girl. I think working girl is probably quite an old-fashioned term, actually. So you've got the other side as well. You've not just got the victim stories. We're looking at her girlfriend and seeing this, what it's done to her as well. This absolute shock, this scene. And I just remember sitting to read it and just, like, Dave, my husband, was asking me, was I okay? Because I'd sunk into myself reading this when, she's realised that Elena's not coming back.
Yeah.
It's such a moving scene.
Oh, thank you. And I think, I mean, the human cost of crime, obviously you lose someone, but, there are multiple people that impacted in that always. And, and that really interests me in writing those emotions and kind of making them real, and kind of heightens the, I don't want to say heightens the crime, but it heightens the emotion of the reader to, and I think for me makes more satisfying to write and to read as well, rather than, a bog standard murder novel, which,
There's something about you writing crime fiction instead of true crime, which means that we can, we can enjoy it. We can say this is enjoyable because it's fictional, even if there are elements that are based on real people, or real things that you've read or seen, things on the news. The actual story, this world you've created, is fictional. So I think, I can enjoy this. You'd feel bad if you enjoyed, or you should feel bad if you enjoy true crime, and you're really salivating over it, really savouring it. But with crime fiction, you can really lean into it and just.
I think if it's done well, then absolutely. I think if there's porn, murder porn, I was going to say porn. I think if there is
Taking
that kind of porn,
my drink, is this where we're going?
I think if there is violence for the sake of violence and gratuitous violence,
Yeah.
and blood and gore and just for no reason other than just to have it on the page. I mean, that's pretty much violence porn, and it's dull. And like I said, for me, it's more interesting to hear the human perspective, feel the human perspective from crimes that happen, and that's always what I strive to do in all my books, and I want them to be, I want people to feel emotion and feel emotion, and but also, and I try to weave in a little bit of humor too.
That is what I was going to change us to next, because we've gone dark, David.
Yeah, I just want to say to people, like, don't be put off by this book. There's no gratuitous violence.
No.
There is, and you mentioned an unusual murder weapon, and of course there is.
You always have something like that, though.
Yeah.
Something different. It's kind of
thing.
Your thing, yeah.
And I think it's. I think, with the exception of Elena, I think the rest of the murders are off. All the murders are off the page, and I think that's. I think that for me, that's important. That this book is not about murder. It's not about the serial killer. It's about the women. That's what this book is about.
Yeah. I do want to talk about the murder weapon. So, I mean, it's literally on the blurb. I don't think we're.
Oh yeah, you can mention it.
It's quite early on. So, okay, where did you come up with this one?
Well, it's been on the back burner for a long time, and for those that don't know, it's a bolt gun, a portable one. This particular one is it's like a black cylindrical tube.
Yeah, so it kind of looks like a truncheon, is the way it's described.
Looks like a truncheon, and it's triggered by like a blank cartridge, like from a gun, and it basically just has this like this metal rod that penetrates, in this case, into the heart of the victim while they're still alive. I know, I'm just like violence porn, but it's like
just walking down the street and saw kind of a nail gun on a building site and thought, I need something like that.
Well, I'm not the first person to use these weapons. In
this one in particular, I haven't read before, and I've read a lot.
Yeah, this
is a new one for me.
Yeah, well, I don't know if this type of gun has been used in similar ones have been used, of course, in Gangs of London. In the first season, there's a really horrific scene where all these men are butchered, and it's just hideous.
I have not seen this.
Okay, it's just anyway.
Being attacked by a moth. I do apologize.
Of course, the classic is No Country for Old Men, which is just incredible. And it's quite a powerful bolt gun. That's just frightening. And there's a few others, but I like the idea of that. This one. Now, this particular one I found on YouTube, so you can probably. If you Google it, you will find this particular one.
My husband is going to wake up at 2:00 in the morning and wonder what the hell I am planning. I'm just on my phone watching people with bolt guns.
Well, there's this couple in I can't remember if in the US or here, but they have this particular bolt gun, and they use it on their farm, and it's an old one, and it's, like I said, it's just generated where the power comes from blank cartridges, and they kind of have it's a 5-minute video where they just kind of show, well, and this is what we do, and this is it, this is an action, and then there's a slow video to show it all working. So it's quite revolting. But I thought that, I really like the idea of that as being an unusual weapon to use to help with a bit of an edge, I think, rather than using knives. I hate knives, and I hate guns, and I kind of like, it's I didn't want to use any of that stuff, or beating. I just did not. I have no stomach for that stuff. This might surprise a lot of people, a lot of, I mean, I've seen reviews of my books, especially The Art of Death, saying it's grisly and it's gruesome and it's all that. And I'm, and I can think of only like a couple of scenes that are that way. And I get compared to Chris Carter a lot, which I find puzzling, like, because he is very graphic and I'm not.
He really leans into it and he relishes it.
Yeah.
You see him do interviews, and he's really open about the research and the weird stuff and the absolutely horrific stuff. And here's me and you sitting there like, okay, let's not go too far.
Yeah. I don't like it. I don't like writing about it. Although I'm like, See No Evil is the exception. But otherwise, no, I don't. Graphic violence, or too much violence, I'm not really interested in.
I like the fact with this weapon, nobody seems to know what it is. When it's being used and it's presented, I think that's something that makes it really stand out, because it is not obvious to the victims what is happening. They think they're going to be maybe beaten by a bat or a truncheon, and it's something completely different, which thankfully is, over much quicker.
Yeah. Well, that was one of the appeals of using it. Because of course the police have no idea, especially way back then. It's they think maybe she's just been, or the victims have just had something stuck in their heart. They don't connect any of the murders. Well, but they're not interested. But the fact that it's a single weapon and the same weapon used up and down the country is gives it an extra bit of suspense and mystery, which I think is good for the book and good for readers.
It definitely keeps you turning the pages constantly. It's kind of like, right, I'll read to the end of this chapter, I'll put it down. No, I'm not putting it. Just everybody else do whatever you're doing. This is my day now. I read it in one sitting in one day, and this is there's no putting that book down. So brace yourselves when you go and buy this. If you haven't read it already, you're not putting it down. I'm going to show the cover. We haven't shown it yet. I know it's been behind me. Have you got a copy of it with you?
I don't actually. No, this is weird.
So I loved when I picked it up. It's all raised, and like you can see the blood shimmering. Which
have you seen behind the dust jacket as well?
I have not seen behind the dust jacket.
It's all white.
It's a very thick. Yeah, it's all white and it's a very thick. So haven't noticed that.
It's all white and red lettering on the inside.
So this one, I said, has got, just putting the dust jacket back on, has a gorgeous cover, and it fits with the theme of the first 3 books, but you've gone from kind of a black theme to a white theme, a dark theme to a light theme, which is nice. Are we going to follow, do you think, with the next 2 books? Are we doing kind of trilogies within a series, or was that just part of the plan for?
Yeah, we thought we'd go just with a different look, and that's what the designers proposed. I mean, I had the idea for the broken. They asked me, well, what do you want in the cover, like, and I kind of knew straight away. what I wanted, because
it kind of needed to be, didn't it? It fits the story beautifully.
Yeah. So I sent them a few suggestions of what I thought would be good, and what actually one of them was a gold heart box as well as a possibility, because you don't always have to be exactly what feature something that's in the book. But I thought they did a fantastic job on this, and the whitish background, it's like a stone effect background. I thought really is very effective.
One of the sorry, go on.
No, you go. Yeah.
One of the things we talked about just before we went live, as you got here, I was listening to the Smiths. Heaven knows I'm miserable now, which is one of my favourite songs, and I really liked the fact that we were talking about humour. Everyone just keeps saying, whenever there's a Smith song playing in the book, everyone's saying how depressing it is, but it's just one of those sounds that I don't find depressing at all. It should be depressing, but it really isn't. It soothes a part of my soul, I think.
Well, that's
and I
right.
feel like that with the weather in Manchester, we're talking about kind of, we're not really sun worshippers, which, in case anyone can't tell, I mean, this face hasn't seen the sun in 20 years. I'm so pale. But I love the gloomy weather, and my husband takes the mickey out of me because the sun comes out and I'm grouchy, and it's cloudy and overcast and raining, and I'm just the happiest person. And I think that's probably a lot of the kind of music I'm into as well. People say it's depressing, but for me, it's joyful.
Well, that's right. And it's I think a lot of people would agree with you. I mean, I certainly would. And gloomy music doesn't mean you're going to be gloomy. Sometimes, especially with the Smiths. They've written some just incredible music. And I use one of their songs in the story, in the story of, especially about Sally, who's one of the victims, and Sally is about to be put into care, and she runs away and to London. And so there's a line, and of course I can't remember it now. So there's a song by the Smiths called "Half a Person," and it's about the line is 16.
Why is this line not coming to my head?
Let me Google it.
I was going to say, is this you Googling it now?
So have to talk amongst yourselves.
I was going to say, I read it, I sang along, and then I can't think what the line is.
And I thought, basically, the lyric was just so right for Sally. And so 16, clumsy and shy, I went to London and I booked myself into the YWCA. I like it here. I like it here. Can I stay? Do you have a vacancy for a back scrubber? Which, reading it out loud does not sound that impressive, but she basically, she's 16, clumsy and shy, and she ends up going to London and dying. And that's, it's very, very sad, but it's a beautiful song. And it was really relevant. And so the book opens with Mallory Jones's podcast, and she's interviewing Fiona, who's a friend of Mallory, or friend of Sally's from school, and she remembers Sally. Sally's been missing 30 years. No one knows what happened to her. And in the background music is half playing to the podcast is "Half a Person" by the Smiths, and Sally or Fiona is talking to Mallory, and she's basically saying, "Oh yeah, Sally was always into the Smiths. Oh, they're so depressing. I was more a Wham girl."
I'm also a Wham girl, I have to say. Yeah.
I love a bit of Wham.
Absolutely. How can you not? Oh, my mind's gone off on different things now with Wham songs. Leslie Lloyd, hello. Hello, everyone who's watching. Leslie's saying I'm definitely different. Yeah, we knew that. And Donna's saying Googling's cheating to you. No, it's not. It's not.
Yeah. When you've got a bad memory.
Mike Raven comes on here and he's like, I'm, one book past this. This was 18 months ago. I've no idea what happened, Sam.
Well, yeah.
So, I think you're doing pretty well remembering character names and actual events that happen and
Yeah.
remembering which song to Google.
Well, it's funny.
Impressive.
I was talking to this girl at a launch once, and she said, "I will never forgive you for killing a dog in your book." And I went, "I've never killed a dog in any of my books," and she said, "Yes, you did. Yes, you did." And I went, "I have not killed a dog in any of my books. You're wrong. You're thinking of someone else." We went on like this. I mean, I know her not really well, but I've met her quite a few times, and then we kind of just left it like that, And I'm like, "Did I? Have I?" So I went back, and it was actually my very first book, Sleeper, and turns out, yes, I had killed a dog in that book. Not me personally.
Not in this series.
No, no,
Not in this series. So anyone who wants to go and pick the book up, you will not find this book or this series on Does the Dog Die?
yeah. I don't like killing animals. People, yeah, but not. Well, that is the weird thing about
It's quite
crime
often
fiction and
debated,
TV.
isn't it?
People hate when animals die, but they're quite happy for people to die, which is always just so weird.
The weird thing is, as well, when you look at I won't name any authors, although I can think of a couple who've regretted it. When some people have got they're on book 15, 20 now of one series. And 20 years ago, when the series came out, nobody thought twice about all of the, animal things. I'm not going to give any descriptions. I do not want letters and death threats over talking about animals and animal cruelty. But, things that authors were doing a decade ago maybe can't do now. So are you always having to be aware of what choices you're making?
Yes, you are. And that's a really interesting point, because, I think even 10 years ago, violence against women in books was a lot more aggressive and disgusting, than it is now. But a lot of female crime writers were writing that stuff, and I'm not going to name them because most of them are big names, and some of the stuff that they were writing was just, people have. I'm not judging it, but it's like there is an audience for that, and and if people, if it makes people worry and cautious, if they're cautionary tales, and I suppose then they're go for it, but certainly for me as a male writer now, I mean, I would not get away with writing anything like that. I'd probably be vilified, and it's and I think probably a female writer would too. It's just that's how the tastes, the industry has changed, expectations have changed, and that kind of grisly violence in crime books. I mean, I could be wrong. I mean, that's certainly what I see, anyway. And certainly speaking to people in the industry, it's not a, if you present a book to a publisher in this country, actually, it's not too bad. But I know in European countries they will refuse to publish anything that is horribly violent, especially with children involved. And I would never write anything that involves the death of children anyway. But it's different countries and cultures just have different tastes.
Yeah.
Right.
It's quite an odd thing because although you're going to have a core reader in your mind when you're writing something, there are going to be so many outliers in that situation. There are going to be people who are parents, who are child free, who are pet owners, who are elderly, who are young and just starting out. And you have to hit something for all of these people while keeping your core audience in mind. And I don't know how you all do it. I think the idea of, I think you can write anything you want. There will be an audience for it. But if you want that kind of mainstream audience, there are certain kind of rules you have to write within, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. For mainstream, it's things are different now. You know, my kind of books, which are dark, or you know, not in the mainstream. So the mainstream right now is cozy. So pretty much anything that's cozy is like just selling. You know, you'll see
Mm.
that, unless it's a big brand name, you know. But even the big brand names are are and cozy are outselling everybody. But cozy is the thing to go, and the way to go, and people. That's that's what's really selling at the minute. But that will change. Like the whole romantasy thing.
Mm.
There's now like that market is utterly saturated, and although a few titles are still selling, they're not. Um, Publishers are beginning to calm down and look elsewhere.
That's the thing. Trends, while a good thing, if you're a writer, if you're writing something now and you're thinking of the current trends, by the time you get that book out, unless you're self-publishing, that'll be out in a few months. You can't follow the trends.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. And yeah, it's writing to trends is so dangerous. I mean, why? I don't know why anyone would do it. And there was a discussion on one of the writers' Facebook groups
Mm.
recently about on this topic. Someone's agent had advised them to write to a trend, which I just thought was really odd, because we always get the opposite advice: never write to trend, because by the time you finish the book, it's going to be more than a year before it's published, and by that time the trend is going to be gone.
Yeah.
But anyway, writing to a trend, is not necessarily is not you're not going to get the best out of the book, because you're not writing a book from the heart. You're
Yeah.
writing based on something that's marketable, and that's just it's not you're not going to be writing your truth.
One of the things I wanted to talk about is Grace is having some building work done. Now, I love the fact that Grandad Jake is getting a mention. I think that's a really nice thing. We won't talk about that for anyone who hasn't caught up with the series yet, but it's kind of, she's in a really interesting is probably the wrong word, but for a reader, Grace is in an interesting part of her life. She's had this huge loss. She is now living in the same house and trying to kind of update it, maybe. She's just trying to make it somewhere that she's not reliving things all the time. That some of the scenes in the house have been the really funny bits of the book. I was laughing at one of the scenes. I actually made a note. Stay there and brick dust is the note I made for myself. So she's got Liam, who is recommended by Harry, and he's in doing the building work, and before he gets it, she's waiting for him. She's frustrated. He's late because traffic, and it was she's trying to have a cup of tea and some toast, and somehow this dust is it's got into the sealed bread wrapper. There's like a film of it on top of a bruise, so she's like trying to wipe her mouth off, and I could smell the brick dust, and I know it's plaster dust, but it's one of those things that anyone who's had building work done knows gets everywhere. Did you write this from experience?
Yeah. Yes, I have. I've lit one of my houses being renovated. I was living in it because I had nowhere else to live.
Ooh.
It was the most miserable time of my life.
It gets everywhere.
Yeah. And I had, like, in my kitchen extension, there was leaks coming, and I was doing a master's at the time. And I can remember and I had assignments and everything to get in. I had to write my master's, and I'm sitting in the kitchen in the winter, with barely any heating, and there's 5 buckets around the kitchen floor. It sounds so cliche, but it was true. Rain just coming in through the ceiling. It's like,
So you've got the dust and you've got the water.
yeah,
Are you just living in some sort of weird paste?
felt like it sometimes, felt like it. And it was an experience, but one, I will never repeat. Tell you
Yeah,
that.
don't blame you. It doesn't sound like the most pleasant thing. Steve's saying, right into trend, and then all books begin to sound and read the same. Remember the Gone Girl days.
Yeah, yeah. Gone Girl's a magnificent book. So original at its time, and I love that book. I still do, and I need to go back and reread it sometime.
Mm.
Yeah,
I think the book and the film are slightly different from what I remember. I remember people are going to throw things at the screen, but I remember really, really enjoying the film.
yeah.
Um,
I
the
did.
book, I don't think I got on with quite as well, but then so maybe now I would go back and read it again
Yeah,
because it's been such a long time since I've read it and watched the film.
the film's terrific. Real, it's excellent. I think.
Mm.
Yeah.
We've got Carrie. Is it Bauer? Bauer? I'm sorry, Carrie. I really hope there's more books to come in this series.
Well, I'm taking a break.
Oh, you can't just drop a thing like that in. Not acceptable. Interview over.
I know. Go away. But I've got a couple of things in the pipeline. I'd really like to write a Mallory Jones book. I'd like to have
That's one of my questions, so I'm getting an answer already.
I have a couple of ideas. I've already started it, in fact. So that's
Okay, I'll forgive you.
a possibility. And I love Mallory Jones, the character of Mallory Jones, and I love Bruce as well. And
Oh, I love Bruce.
and the scope that I could have with those two and some new characters to bring into the mix is.
Are you going to keep Pedro as well? I like Pedro.
Yes, of course. He's the comedy element,
The
So
three of them, they work really. Do you want to explain who they are? They work so well together. I'm so glad you're keeping him.
So Mallory Jones is the true crime podcaster, and she is kind of in her late 20s, maybe. She's kind of, um, plucky, feisty, very smart, and she's covered. Got these tattoos down her arms, tattoos of, like black tattoos of um, uh, flowers and greenery and stuff like that, blackery, because there's no green on her in her ink, and
Just in the butterfly bit.
and yeah, she got a butterfly, and so her brother-in-law, Bruce Boo Radley, is he is they are both haunted by the death of Bruce's husband, who was killed by the roadside killer, someone who's called the roadside killer. So Bruce and Zach at the time, they pulled over. They were on a trip around the UK, and they pulled over to have a pee break, as you do sometimes on dual carriageways, and this guy came up and basically plowed into them. Bruce survived, but only just. But he's kind of almost practically crippled, so he's kind of in pain. He can still just about walk, but he's in pain and he's haunted. So the two but Zach and Bruce and Mallory are committed to finding this roadside killer. But along the way they've created their own podcast on this person, but they still can't find him. But they've found a love for true crimes and true crime podcasting, so that's kind of become their thing.
Yeah, searching for the answers.
Yeah,
has given them this thing to focus on, hasn't it?
Exactly that. They're always searching for the answers, and that's the thing. And Pedro is Spanish. He is a very flamboyant carer of Bruce, who clashes a lot with Mallory, and they don't hate each other, but they have a very respectful relationship. But you know, they, at the same time, they're it's neither of them are quite tolerant of each other.
And he just kind of comes in every other day to do whatever's needed. And I think that at one point they're having a bit of a debate about breakfast, and he's just funny. He's just got funny bones.
Yeah, no, I really enjoyed writing him, actually. Yeah, I know a few people like him.
I like the fact that you're going to keep him. So I was going to ask if Mallory is going to be in any of the future Grace books, but she's going to get her own series complete there.
Well, I hope so. That, if someone buys it, it's we'll have to see. But it's yeah, I'm taking a break from Grace Archer, and we'll see where I can get with Mallory Jones. I also have something else in the pipeline, which I can't say anything about at the minute, but it's all the kind of stuff that's I'm working on at the minute. But I hope to bring Grace back soon.
Yeah, I will hunt you down if you don't. I need more Grace. And I can't say anything about where the book eventually goes, but you know why I want to see more of Grace. I want to see what she does next, where things go. So one of the things that we often talk about is the buildings that you use, because I like the fact that you use real places for a start, but also you manage to weave so much in without having extra characters, because you'll give some of the buildings history, or something in conversation, or however you do it, and you give us so much information in so few words that I feel like I really know a place, and then I look back and I think, there are 3 sentences, how do I feel like I know this place so well? You take a lot of time in the detail.
Yeah, what I normally do is I will overwrite to begin with. I might have what I'll end up with a small paragraph, but it might be like half a page to begin with, and I know there's no way I will be keeping that. So I'll just kind of trim that fat ruthlessly, to get what it is I want to evoke, and for the reader, and what I want them to feel and see. So it's tricky, that, but I mean, I think the key is to not overdo it, and to just keep it brief, and that is the challenge, for any writer.
We talked earlier on about kind of police views to sex workers, and there's just kind of little snippets of the book because the police paid so little attention to people's deaths at the time. Sally disappeared, as you said, and there was so little importance placed on all of these people that there was really not that much information to be found, apart from once you get out and you're talking to people to get the information. One of the things that I found really interesting was dealing with I don't want to say which character it is, but there's somebody that somebody else goes to speak to get some information, and they then make a decision that goes against this victim's wishes, to pursue the avenue further. This victim wants nothing to do with all of this stuff that's going on, and this other person decides for them, right, okay, well, I think you need to come forward with this, we need answers with this, and pushes somebody who really doesn't want to be in that position into an uncomfortable position. That was really interesting to read, because that is often what happens. Somebody else will make a decision based on what they need and not really think about what the victim needs. And that was introduced and dealt with really well. You could see from both sides of it. And I felt myself saying to this person, you need to leave that person alone. This isn't right. You shouldn't be doing this. But without it, other things don't happen. So, the way you handled that was really beautifully done.
Oh, thank you. That's really nice to hear.
Do you have any idea what I've just alluded to?
Yes.
Oh,
I know.
good.
I knew early on who you were referring to.
Okay.
And But I thought it was really important that that person takes that particular route because it's for the greater good. And
I've really not given you much you can say here,
no,
but I liked the exploration of people thinking that their views are more important than the victims.
yeah,
And of what the victims needed.
yeah,
This person thought their point was more important. And they did struggle with it briefly, but not for a long time. They went and did what they wanted to do
yeah,
anyway. So I like the fact that you've explored victims in every different way in this book. They've got their own chapters. They've got people who really do want the best for them, not doing the best for them. It's such a there's so much thought gone into exploring it from every angle possible that it just really binds the book.
thank you so much. Thank you.
Donna's laughing. She said, "Be afraid, be very afraid, very afraid." Although Sam doesn't really leave the house. I don't know what that's about. What are we afraid of, Donna? You have to remind us. Didn't we start the interview saying what bad memories we've got? And she's not telling me what we should be afraid of.
Damn
But
it. You can't see
yeah,
the chat.
I don't leave the house much. It's on the Facebook comments.
Okay.
So let's see if she tells us. So we've only got kind of 9 minutes left, which is not very long. When do you think your next book will be out? Do you have any kind of ideas on that yet?
I don't. No, it's I can't say. It's all kind of up in the air at the minute. So
Yeah, she's
watch
not
the
answering
space.
us.
Though.
Yeah.
Watch the space.
Are there any other characters that you're going to bring back from earlier on? I really like the fact that Mallory came back. And there's somebody else that's in this one that was in a previous book. Maybe it's Bruce. No?
Bruce is new.
Bruce? Who am I thinking of?
Oh yeah, so there was the female detective sergeant who went off to have a baby and see no evil. Yeah.
Right, okay.
Can't remember her name.
No, I know this is the thing. I'm kind of waiting on Donna to reply, but she's not doing so.
Go on, Donna.
She doesn't remember either. She doesn't remember what we need to be afraid of. Maybe me and you plotting something.
She's scared. She's run.
Did you have a launch for A Violent Heart?
I did.
So tell us, what did you do?
I had it in Brighton.
At Goldsboro.
Invited everyone, just come along because, I'm running this book festival now in Brighton, which I've started up. So I did it, as a, come along and everyone, whoever wants to. I had a few people come from up north, which is really.
Did Chris come? Chris McDonald?
No.
I was convinced I'd seen him somewhere recently. I don't know. He gets everywhere. He's like you. In fact, you're actually going to be in Manchester as well, aren't you?
Stockport, and I'm coming up for a thing in November, 28th of November, a panel discussion with
Is
Chris
that at
and
Serenity?
Taylor. Yeah. Is that near you?
It's fairly near. I have been to one of their events before when the Killers Christmas list came out. I went over and that was brilliant. And they're a lovely couple who it was Chris who interviewed Chris. It all gets confusing when everyone's got the same names.
Christmas.
So let's go back because we've now gone off on I'm forgetting we're live and I'm just chatting with you now. I'd still being attacked by moths. Really
I can see it.
It's really frustrating. So you did your launch, and then we'll talk about your festival as well.
At what?
And we'll talk about your festival as well.
Oh yeah, so the launch at Goldsboro in Brighton, and that was very nice. Lots of people came, and we sold a few books, which is really, really good. And the narrator of my audio book came, I invited her, and so we had a little discussion about the book and the series. for everyone, and it went well. Yeah, and it was a nice evening. And I'm kind of the founder of the Beyond the Book Festival, which is a cross-genre book festival that will be happening every May in Brighton as part of the Brighton Fringe Festival. And we'll be offering our kind of literary panels, and for people all across May, the month of May. And but we will have crime panels, but we'll also have other panels too.
Bit of everything.
Industry panels, yeah. So,
which is a nice thing, because there are so many crime fiction festivals, obviously. Yeah. There's different things all over the country now, which must make it quite tricky. So you've got a different niche there. You're doing something that, it's not one. It's more of a one size fits all than a niche.
Yeah, and there is already a crime festival in, like Williams Crime Festival in
Fatal Shore.
Well, sure, just outside Brighton. Excuse me. But there's just no need for another one, but I'm not. Also, I was not interested in setting up the crime festival. I mean, I love crime, but I also love other books too.
Yeah.
And I completely read cross genre, and so and I think for the audience in Brighton, they're the same. They're more interested in other types of books than just solely crime.
I always think I'm going to pick up something else, and I still mainly stick to crime. I always think at some point I'll read something else, but I generally read for the reading list.
Yeah.
But you must get sent, I mean, I get sent all kinds of things, but you must get sent all sorts. I mean, how do you manage your book pile, your read pile?
I don't get sent that many, compared to some authors, which I'm quite pleased about. I don't want like a whole ton of books coming away because I don't have the time to read them. But if someone I know really needs a book read, and of course, if they want a quote, and I do it. But it's providing it's good, of course.
That's the tricky thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's nerve-wracking. A book comes out by an author you love, who you also happen to be friends with, and we always go into it with good hope and good intentions, but I can't imagine the awkward conversation if you sent the book and you don't want to put your name to it. But I think that's a better way of doing it. I think authors would far more appreciate that than you putting your name to something that you didn't like or you haven't read, or
you could give them something totally ambiguous, like we'll get tongues wagging, and or understated, or.
But you are never short of reading material anyway, are you?
No.
You have a lot of books in your house.
I have a lot, which a lot of them I haven't read even. For a while I was just collecting and collecting.
I have no idea what that would be like. Yeah. I could build a fort out of my books and live in it.
Well, reading is, I mean, as we will all know, reading is so important to all of us. It's like, it's how we relax, it's how we disappear from the madness around us, and it is. I can't imagine a world where I'm unable to read, and it's not the same on Audible. I love Audible audiobooks, but one of the best things, most wonderful, rewarding things to do in the world is to sit quietly with a book and just get lost in that world and the characters and those people.
I am slightly concerned at the world we're losing ourselves in, but at the same time, it's my favourite kind of book.
Yes.
Not for real life. We'll keep real life cozy and not crime, but yeah.
Absolutely, yeah.
We've only got a couple of minutes left. Steve Munoz, hello Steve, is going to have to try your books. They sound fascinating.
Try them,
Steve, do you
Steve.
not listen to me at all?
Exactly. Listen to her.
Steve has been told how much I love this series. You've been on my top 10 list actually
Oh,
every year. So yes, Steve, pay attention, my friend. Do you want to give us a quick recap of? Would you want to say something about all of the books, or do you just want to focus on A Violent Heart for now?
Well, being as Steve hasn't read them yet, I'll give a very brief overview of the three. So
Pay attention, Steve.
the first three are the first one is The Art of Death, second See No Evil, the third Silent Man. They're effectively a trilogy because they have the same got threads running through them that finish with the Silent Man. And they can be read standalone, but you might be more impactful if you kind of start from the beginning. You know, and I would certainly advise that. The Art of Death. Well, I won't explain it.
You can.
I don't think we've got a lot of time, so it's it's probably one of the darkest of the three. No, actually, those three are pretty dark each. And A Violent Heart is my latest one. It's effectively standalone, and certainly I'm really happy with the feedback it's getting. People seem to really love it, and it's a kind of an emotional story, and a hunt for a merciless killer, and the doing right of wrongs, not just criminal, but also institutional problems within the police, sexism and misogyny and stuff like that. So,
and plenty of people to fight against it.
Yeah.
And
also, there's a few laughs.
Yeah, there were a lot of laughs. So it's something that you write quite dark things. There is a lot of light in them as well.
Yeah, I think you have to.
There's a good balance. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you to everyone who's watched and asked questions and taken the mickey out of us. We always enjoy that. And I can't wait to see what Mallory does and what you do with Grace when you eventually sit down to write more for Grace and Harry. So thank you so much, and I hope we get you back on to chat about the next book.
Thanks, Sam. It's great to be here, and thanks everyone for joining us.